Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this session. My name is Raed Ahsan, and today we'll explore a topic that is both exciting and deeply concerning as well: quantum ready cybersecurity, preparing governance frameworks for the post quantum era. Now, this is not just going to be a purely technical session because we are going to talk about what quantum means for governance. Because the organizations that survive disruptions are not just the ones with the best technology, but they are the ones with the best governance frameworks as well, so that they can manage risk and guide the change effectively. Starting with the introduction, like we'll discuss some brief understandings about quantum computing, then we'll go into the advanced stuff. So, first of all, what is quantum computing and why do we have to discuss it now? Because quantum computing has been a dream in physics labs for decades. But in the last 5 years, we've seen some enormous leaps, billions of dollars invested, breakthroughs in stability, and governments also declaring it as a national priority. We are now closer than ever to the quantum advantage. So, why quantum poses a risk to the current cybersecurity? Because our cybersecurity foundations, the RSA, ECC, SHA, PKI, those were designed under the assumption that certain mathematical problems are too hard for classical computers to solve. But quantum breaks that assumption. Suddenly, what was once mathematically impossible becomes solvable. And the importance of updating governance frameworks, like this is not just a technical update. Governance frameworks like policies, compliance, accountability, they all need to evolve, because without governance migration will be reactive, chaotic, and also non-compliant. But with governance, migration becomes really strategic, risk driven, and aligned with business objectives. So, what's the objective of today's session? By the end of this session, you'll have a complete roadmap for integrating quantum readiness into your governance strategy, ensuring your organization stays secure and compliant in the years ahead. Moving on to the next slide, the quantum computing 101. So we'll understand the qubits versus the classical bits. So classical bits are like the zeros and ones, we all know. But qubits, however, can be both at the same time, thanks to superposition. Now, I can give you an example here. Imagine flipping a coin. Classical computing waits until it lands, but quantum lets you hold heads and tails simultaneously. And as I mentioned before, thanks to superposition, now we'll discuss what is superposition and entanglement. Superposition gives exponential scale, and entanglement links those qubits together. So what does this mean? This means that changes in one instantly influences the another one. And Einstein called it the spooky action at a distance. This gives quantum computers some really extraordinary powers. And the speed advantage, this is why classical computer that would take millions of years to solve a factoring problem could be beaten by a quantum computer in just hours. And that's not a speed boost, that's a paradigm shift. Let's talk about the algorithms that are involved. There are two algorithms that make this relevant for us. First is the Shor's algorithm, which breaks the RSA and ECC. And the next one is Grover's algorithm, which weakens symmetric encryption like AES. And these are proven mathematically. They are the ticking clock. Let's discuss some quantum threats to cybersecurity. Starting off with the Shor's algorithm. With Shor's algorithm, RSA and the elliptic curve cryptography completely collapse. Everything that relies on them, the TLS, SSL, PKI, they completely become insecure. And the Grover's algorithm, if we talk about it, Grover's halves the effective strength of symmetric encryption. Now, AES 256 still remains strong, but AES 128 is completely not quantum safe. And for organizations still relying on weaker encryption, this is really urgent. Now, let's discuss some PKI and TLS SSL at risk. Think about the digital certificates that establish trust every time you visit a secure website. If those signatures can be forged, then the chain of trust across the entire internet falls apart. And this point brings me to another topic, that is harvest now, decrypt later. And I call it as the most immediate problem. Because attackers, like if we talk about the black hat hackers, they don't need quantum computers today to create the risk. They can still steal your encrypted data now, store it, and decrypt it later once they have that quantum power. Sensitive data with long lifespan, like the healthcare data, government data, intellectual property, they are already at risk. Now let's imagine your encrypted backups from today becoming readable in 10 years. That's the reality we are preparing for. Now, moving on to why governance matters. Like, why do we have to focus on governance now? Because technology alone doesn't ensure resilience. Governance gives us a complete structure, which are the policies and controls. They give us compliance, meeting the regulatory obligations, and they also give us the resilience, the ability to adapt without chaos. And governance ensures leadership understand the quantum risk. It sets the appetite for investment and drives migration strategically. And without governance, as I mentioned, organizations will be reactive, fragmented, and completely exposed. Now let's discuss some global standards and their initiatives. Starting off with NIST PQC. NIST is finalizing algorithms like the Crystal Skyber and the Dilithium. And these will replace RSA and ECC in the future because, as I mentioned above, Shor's algorithm is the one that completely collapses RSA and ECC. And to replace them, there are two algorithms being finalized by the NIST PQC that are Crystal Skyber and Dilithium. Next initiative is taken by the ETSI quantum safe cryptography that is helping Europe shape the standards effectively. Another one is ISO 23837. This will ensure international harmonization. And these initiatives are not just academic. For governance leaders, they are complete roadmaps. Aligning with them ensures interoperability, compliance, and trust. Now let's understand the quantum risk assessment. How to perform a risk assessment with quantum. So identify the assets. That is the first and foremost step, identifying the assets. And we'll start by listing every place where cryptography is used. For example, certificates, VPNs, APIs, backups, etc. Next is to understand the confidentiality lifespan. Now, what I mean by this is how long must this data stay secure? Because some data only matters for a year, but healthcare or government records may even need decades. So, according to that, we need to set the confidentiality and we need to have the security implementations on those assets accordingly. Next is crypto agility. This is the ability to switch algorithms quickly, and governance must require crypto agility. Last but not the least is quantify impact. Finally, we'll map out the business impact like the fines, reputation, operations, and this gives leadership a concrete risk picture. Now we'll move on to designing the quantum ready governance frameworks. So what we are going to understand here, like how to update those governance and what I mean by updating governance. It means that integrating quantum risks into frameworks like COBIT, ISO 27001, NIST CSF, and more frameworks like this. Defining KPIs like percentage of systems in inventoried for crypto agility using a phased approach. And what I mean by a phased approach is like a structured approach that is assess, test, implement, and writing policies requiring crypto agility and key rotation. This is how governance shift from theory to practice. Let's understand the post quantum transition strategy. And here's the roadmap for it. Inventory dependencies. First of all, we'll need to understand inventory dependencies. Second, we'll need to select NIST approved alternatives. Then we need to have a pilot test with dual encryption. And then we need to set governance checkpoints at every stage. And remember, this is not a single event, it's a continuous governance program. And what about the organizational readiness checklist? You need to ask your organization, have the executives been briefed? Is there a quantum risk owner? Do we have a roadmap for PQC adoption? Have incident response and audits been updated? And if any answer is no, that means you're not fully ready for it. Let's understand the cross-sector case studies. We'll start off with the financial services here. Banks are testing quantum safe PKI. Trust in digital signatures is non negotiable. When we talk about healthcare, patient records span decades. Harvest now, decrypt later method makes them a prime target. And as I mentioned above, healthcare, government, intellectual property, these are the ones that have a long lifespan of data, and healthcare comes under that. Some governments already mandate crypto agility for critical infrastructure. These show that while industries differ, governance principles remain the same: anticipate, prepare, and adapt. What about the key challenges we'll face in this? The first key challenge is obviously vendor dependency. Legacy systems rely on vendors. If they are not ready, neither are you. Second key challenge is interoperability. Not all algorithms will work smoothly together. Next is cost versus urgency. Boards hesitate because quantum feels far away. Governance must bridge this gap. Then, last but not the least, key challenge is talent shortage. We lack PQC skilled professionals. Governance must address training. Now, let's understand the future outlook. In the future, we'll see hybrid cryptographic models. We'll see quantum key distributions for sensitive communication, AI to automate crypto governance, and greater collaboration between public and private sectors. The future is uncertain, but governance can make it manageable. Now, let's understand the final recommendations here. So, to close, my recommendations would be: start with awareness and inventory, integrate quantum into strategic planning, build a crypto agile culture, and stay aligned with NIST and ISO standards. These are practical steps you can begin immediately. Quantum is inevitable, governance is our defense, and if we act now, we will be resilient when the quantum era arrives. The key is simple: don't wait.